Morning, everyone. Good to be here. Sean, thanks for the introduction and invitation. The way we're going to run this panel, I'll do some opening remarks around mining and metals and critical minerals. And then the panel will jump into a little brief description from each person. We're lucky to have an amazing panel with Mary covering kind of nuclear uranium, Rodrigo covering copper, if I remember, and Teague on lithium. So I've got that right. So there's three of the very critical minerals. So that's just kind of shaping remarks. So we talk about, we've really shifted from the age of an energy transition to the age of energy expansion. And I'm talking about globally, okay, with the primary responsibility of everyone to deliver affordable, reliable, secure energy that's as clean as possible and not obsess about the last thing. And to me, there's four pillars on that. Obviously, we've got to try and reduce emissions as best we can. There's a social equality issue globally. Americans particularly forget, and Europeans, that there's nearly 1.5 billion people that don't have electricity in the world, and they have a human right and moral right to have electricity, which we prevent them to have, mainly in Africa. And the key thing that we're going to be talking about today and moving to a minerals intensive energy system, which is really a blind spot for the West in particular. And lastly, obviously, reducing emissions and all that is kind of naught if we don't solve China and India's love affair with coal. So just that parting remark. So let's jump into critical minerals. First, I hate the term because people that don't understand mining think about rare earth elements or lithium and then bestow the characteristics of that metal predominantly across all 55. Every mineral is different. It's in different countries, different companies. China has a different choke point on every single supply chain that looks different. So I think we need to kind of unpack critical minerals and what they mean instead of kind of looking at this big bundle. I think it's because it leads to wrong-headed policy and direction by governments all around the world. So, and I think, I've coined a phrase, we're entering the period of a minerals famine. I mean, we really are. So if we look at energy demand and projected minerals demand from the IEA or S&P, is by 2035, we're going to have a severe shortage, particularly of copper, lithium. And as Sean said, permitting and developing mines is not easy. It's 15, 20 years. In fact, the US now is the worst jurisdiction to do that. 29 years to permit and develop a mine. 29 years. So even if friendshoring worked, there's a 30-year gap. And that assumes we're sitting on the minerals, which we aren't. So there's a lot of complexity that we have to understand. So it's not easy. And I think the downstream industry that we talk about, midstream, which is refining, smelting, particularly people that make stuff, car companies, really don't understand this and don't even do scenarios about what are the risks and implications. So I kind of talk about this risk as a triangle. So on one hand, and Sean mentioned this, the US is very, and Europe to a lesser extent, is all about de-risking supply chain and friendshoring. And the message we send to countries that have resources, particularly in Africa and Latin America, is give me your minerals so I can process them. On the other hand, and I sit in the ministerial roundtable in Riyadh that brings together all the resource ministers from Africa and Latin America, is all these countries are going, no, we want to move away from the extract and ship model. We want to retain more downstream value. So they want to add more midstream processing in their country. So we're saying, give it to us, and they're going, no, we want to keep it. And it's their right to extract more value from their resources. Who are we to tell them, we did it, you can't? So that's a tension that we need to overcome. And when we talk to countries, we need to understand where they are in their economic growth cycle, social cycle, and help them build prosperity, not take it away from them. And then lastly, the bottom of the triangle is China's market shaping. And that creates this kind of tension in the minerals ecosystem that just creates so many shocks that we really need to understand. Then lastly, Indigenous, so my non-profit DPI works with Indigenous communities around the world, is they are increasingly voicing that they want to see more value from the resources that are on their land, okay, and move away from just seeing the negatives. So there's all this tension, then finally technical problems. All the good resources have been mined. This is a problem. So the stuff we're doing is really technically difficult. So that's kind of some of the areas we're going to jump into. And there's this document, you've got a QR code, which is called Minerals at a Glance. I'd read it if I was you, if you want to understand minerals. Because again, not a well understood industry as we've talked about. So we're going to, and when we talk about mining and minerals, we're going to be talking about the extraction of those and midstream processing, which is the smelting and refining of those minerals. So it's not just the mining part. And my last comment, and then we'll jump into the panel, is when you ask people that are all in on solar and wind, okay, is they are usually 90% of the time anti-mining. Okay, and my last factoid is on offshore wind uses 20 times more copper than 1 megawatt of power for fossil. So it's close to 20 tons versus 1 ton. So, I mean, it's driving massive new demand that was never predicted. So with that, we're going to open it up. So Mary, why don't you kick us off and just give us a quick 1 minute on yourself and your organization.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. A pleasure to be here. My name is Mary Newmeyer, and I work for the Urenco Group, which is a provider of uranium enrichment services. We are the largest Western provider of uranium enrichment services. Urenco has been in operation for more than 50 years. The company is headquartered in London, but we operate enrichment plants in the northwest of England, in Holland, in Germany, and our newest plant is here in the United States, in New Mexico. So we are a good example of friendshoring in that we came to the United States in the early 2000s. We built our facility in southeastern New Mexico. We came into operation in 2010 and have continued to expand our site. We are right at the southwest corner on the border of Texas, so the closest big airport is Midland, but we have invested more than $5 billion in that facility to date. We are currently expanding it further, and we are looking forward to even more expansion to meet market needs. So a pleasure to be here. I have been with Urenco for a little over 4 years. I am based in Washington, D.C., but previously was with the federal government for many years at the Departments of Justice and Energy on Capitol Hill with the Energy and Commerce Committee, and then at the White House. So before that, had a career in private practice with a couple of big law firms. So Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Mary. Awesome. Yeah. So Tristan, do you want to go next? And then Rodrigo. So I'll mix it up a little bit.
Yeah. I'm Teague. I'm the
Teague,
founder.
sorry. Oh, God.
I'm the founder and CEO of EnergyX. I started EnergyX back in 2018, 7 years after I graduated from USC, fight on. And EnergyX is a lithium company. I noticed, Peter spoke about the major shortages that we're seeing and expecting to see in some of the most important critical materials like lithium and copper. And with the transition that we're seeing to electric vehicles, I foresaw that lithium, which is one of the main materials in batteries, would be very under supplied, but very over demanded. So I started EnergyX to address that supply-demand gap, and we developed some technology called direct lithium extraction technology that can improve the efficiency, the cost effectiveness, and the output of lithium. And now we're developing 2 projects, major billion-dollar projects that will produce about 50,000 tons each of lithium, one in South America and one here in the United States. And it also takes a really long time to develop mining projects, as you mentioned. So we're going through that. But one thing that I think at least this administration is doing well is kind of reforming a lot of the permitting. There's several challenges with building projects. One is raising the capital to do it. 2 is the execution needed. And 3 is the permitting and regulatory process. And if you have all this red tape, it makes it very hard. So we're working through that and hope to have our first project up online in 2027. And excited to be here and talk about critical minerals and lithium with you guys.
Thanks so much, Rodrigo.
Thank you. Rodrigo Barbosa, President and CEO of Aura Minerals, also USC alumni, class 2002 MBA, here at Popovich Hall. Aura Minerals is a fast growth mining company, gold and copper. We like to consider ourselves as the startup of the mining industry. We're gonna go talk here about the challenges of the sector, but I would highlight now is the opportunities that you can have in the sector. And the sector really needs talented people. Aura Minerals is a very good example of those opportunities that can bring to you and to your career. We acquired this company back in 2017 for $20 million. We rethought about the strategy. We rethought about the balance sheet, the team, the culture. A lot of what I learned here at school. If you check on the internet or website, you're gonna see a lot of what we learned applied to the company. So we come from a $20 million company producing with the revenues $100 million. Now we are close to $1 billion revenues and $3 billion equity value in the stock exchange, but yet still a lot of room to continue to grow. We have copper and gold operations, Mexico, Honduras, recently acquired Guatemala, 3 operations in Brazil, and a project also in Colombia.
All right, thanks very much. So let's jump into it. Mary, we'll start with you. There appears to be a nuclear renaissance going on, in terms of nuclear power stations being restarted, thanks to AI demand. A lot of talk about SMRs. I mean, is this a flash in the pan and we'll go back to what it was, or do you think this is something that's real and global and we're going to see an increase in nuclear energy? How are you guys looking at it?
Well, I think there's a lot of talk about nuclear renaissance. In the past, there have been a number of nuclear renaissances that didn't necessarily prove out. Sometimes people like to call it the nuclear resurgence. I think it is something that is widely recognized as a very significant change for the industry. We have very broad bipartisan support at the federal level, on Congress. The last administration was extremely focused on commercial deployment of nuclear to meet the newly recognized needs of the tech sector, as well as manufacturing and modernization of our infrastructure. The current administration is also, if the last administration pledged to increase triple nuclear by 2050. The Trump administration has pledged to quadruple it by 2050. So very broad bipartisan support on Capitol Hill. It's really quite unprecedented. Last Congress, there were maybe 60 bills that passed, and I think 7 of them related to the nuclear industry. And so just extraordinary bipartisan support for the build out of nuclear. So this has manifested itself in a number of forms. There is strong support for continued operation of the existing fleet. So we have right now 94 operating reactors. A number of years ago, we were shutting down reactors, but that has entirely changed. Most reactors have or will seek extensions for up to 80 years. So there are other reactors that we're going to shut down and change that decision. So here in California, Diablo Canyon is a prime example. We also have, for the first time ever, reactors restarting. So in Michigan, the Palisades plant is right now going through the licensing process at NRC to come back online. As many of you may have heard, Unit 1 at 3 Mile Island is going to be brought back online to support Microsoft. And there are a number of other plants that are right now being considered for bringing back online. So there's very broad support for the existing fleet and the large reactors. There's also incredibly broad support for the development of the next generation of reactors, which includes sort of a wide range. I think I think I have this right, but I think there's something like 80 designs under development right now. And these include what are sometimes referred to as small modular reactors. There also includes microreactors, which are the ones that could potentially be mobile. And then there are advanced reactors, which are sort of smaller versions of the large reactors. And so all of those are under development. A lot of them are receiving federal funding to support demonstration. As there was a lot of support in the last administration, the current administration wants to demonstrate these as soon as possible, and so there was a wave of executive orders in May that is really seeking to see results and demonstrate some of those smaller reactors. So very broad support across the spectrum for nuclear. And so there's tremendous opportunity, as was mentioned, for any of the students here. This is an area where there is heavy demand and a lot of opportunity for just wonderful career experiences.
This is like a job fair.
But it's also, so there's a tremendous amount of opportunity, but there are also challenges. Nuclear has always had a challenge with deployment in a timely way. Licensing has always been a big issue. Again, the current administration and the Congress previously has been trying to work on expediting licensing for new reactors.
And I'm going to park a question for all 3 of you when we finish going through the initial ones, which is all 3 of you face know-how problems, construction timelines that are ridiculous, cost overruns that are amazing, especially in the West. So, and I think it's not unique to anyone of mine or anything. So I'm going to ask that as a general conversation after we've each gone through it, just so you can all start thinking about it, because I think it's a big challenge for us.
Yeah. But specific to the nuclear industry, and maybe more specific to this conference, is that it will be important to build out the supply chain. And when it comes to nuclear fuel, it is a somewhat complex supply chain in that it includes the mining of uranium ore, of which it's quite ubiquitous, but it requires mining and then a process called conversion. And then the enrichment process, which is where Urenco and other enrichers step in, and then a fabrication process where the enriched uranium is converted into small pellets that go into the fuel rods that go into fuel assemblies for plants. So in the U.S., that supply chain has not been as strong as we need. Domestic mining in the U.S. has had really declined to almost nothing. Conversion, we had one plant in Illinois. It has ceased operating a number of years ago. Urenco was the only enrichment plant. It is the only commercial scale enrichment plant in the U.S. And so that has been a challenge, but there is a very strong effort to start to strengthen that fuel cycle. And with the war in Ukraine, and I know we'll talk about geopolitical issues, there has been a very major impetus for expansion of the supply chain in the U.S. Traditionally, Russia, which has massive capacity to produce enriched uranium, has engaged in trading practices that mean that they flood the markets with very low-cost enriched uranium, and that has really held back investment in the U.S. nuclear fuel cycle. But things have changed. Congress last year passed a uranium ban on which has already gone into effect, but is subject to a waiver process. So we in the U.S. Have relied on Russia for about 20% of the enriched uranium. That will come to an end in 2028, and that's been really important for the mining sector. The conversion plant in Illinois, in Metropolis, Illinois, ConverDyn, has come back online. Some of the mines have restarted operating. We have been expanding our plant in New Mexico. Others are looking to build plants in the U.S. We are expanding our plants in Europe to help serve the U.S. market, and in France, another company called Orano, it has a major expansion going on. So things are starting to happen to support, but as you say, there's going to be intense demand for uranium and processed
Tremendous
uranium.
opportunity, tremendous challenges too.
Yes.
So Teague.
Yeah.
So just a couple of comments before you jump in. Yeah. So
No, I have a lot of thoughts about nuclear. I don't want to steal the shine from the nuclear panel that's later. But like Mary said, as it relates to this panel and metals and mining, that's a critical facet of the nuclear emergence, because not only is uranium important for fission reactors, but there's a whole other subset of materials that are derived from mining and metals that are critical for nuclear. I break nuclear down into two kind of categories. You have fusion and fission. Fusion is not yet technologically proven, but fusion needs a lot of lithium-6. So that's something that EnergyX as a mining and critical materials company is looking at. Fission, there's some of the 80 or so reactor designs that need really high purified lithium-7, 99.999. So we're looking at how to produce that. Thorium is another critical material that some reactors are going towards. And then I think one other thing that I want to touch on as it relates to mining and metals is, how many people here know what the idiot index is, by a show of hands? One, Sean? Nobody knows what the idiot. Josh, all right. For those of you that don't know, the idiot index is how much a raw material costs to come out of the ground versus how much you can buy it for on the market. And like kind of all that markup versus how much it actually costs to get there. So Elon talks a lot about this. when he's trying to build rockets or cars and things like that. And as it relates to uranium, the crude uranium that comes out of the ground is called U3O8. It's the yellow cake. But then you have to refine it, what Urenco does, and enrich it. And that's $80 or so a kilogram. But once you enrich it to what is needed for nuclear fuel, it can sometimes cost as much as I've seen quotes for $15,000 a kilogram. So that delta is good for Urenco, but also something that I think the whole industry needs to look at from a supply chain perspective to really, a lot of these SMR companies that are trying to build small modular reactors probably can't afford such high fuel costs, right? So as we look to bring down the cost of energy to fuel, call this the Industrial Revolution 4.0 or whatever you want, the AI revolution, we need really low cost of energy.
Yeah, so I think just touching on that, so for everyone's edification, where does uranium actually come from? Because this is all kind of a zero-sum game if we don't have it. So we've turned off Russia, which is a major supplier of uranium.
Of enriched uranium.
But then Kazakhstan is the major miner of uranium, which is an interesting country. And Australia, who's actually shutting down its uranium mines because it's kind of an anti-nuclear country and anti-uranium. So I think we shouldn't ever underestimate, as we do all the time, is the very source of the material. Because the US expansion of electricity is going to cost $4 or $5 trillion in the next 20 years. And governments fundamentally do not have the budgets to underwrite and subsidize Western industry to become low cost. So we have to innovate our way there, which is one of the big challenges. Teague, we're going to jump into lithium.
Okay.
Talk about market shaping. Just so everybody knows, China controls 80% of processing of lithium. Australia is the number one lithium miner, just put that. China flooded, this is one of their market shaping. They flooded the market with oversupply, collapsed the price of lithium. So no Western project on a commercial basis can make money. So Albemarle cancelled mine projects, midstream processing projects in the US, Australia as a result of that. And China will keep suppressing the price to control the supply chain and stop Western companies developing resources. So we get exceptions like Teague. So Teague, when you look at that as the market and you're developing mines, should we be thinking about this and not just rely on government investment like we're seeing with Lithium Americas and stuff like that? Because we can't rely on government all the time.
Yeah. So it's somewhat of a misnomer that we're seeing huge price collapses. I mean, that's true, but you have to look at a little bit larger of the picture. So I started EnergyX in 2018, and the price of lithium was roughly $12,000 to $15,000 a ton. And then it crept up to 20. And then in 2021, 2022, people really started to see a huge EV transition. I think everybody saw Elon become the richest person in the world. So every single major car company said, we're going all electric and we're going to commit 30, 50, $100 billion to do it. So there was this instant, huge demand increase, which caused lithium to spike from $20,000 to $80,000 a ton, which was bad for the industry because that passed through to the price of electric vehicles, which made them a little bit too expensive. So, like any market, if you see a huge spike like that, you're going to see a drop. I would say that this price collapse, and now it's back down to around $15,000 a ton, has been a normalization, a recorrection. Now, across the board, we've seen inflation and prices rise for the materials, or shall I say, like the construction and building of lithium plants, right? So costs to produce the lithium has gone up over the past 7 to 10 years. And at the end of the day, if you're trying to compete in a metals and mining market and something that is kind of becoming, lithium is kind of moving from a specialty chemical to a commodity, price is king in commodities. So as we design our lithium plants, the only thing that I think about is how cheap can we produce?
Yeah.
And that is our moat for when the price comes down. the other producers that are more expensive are the first to go because then they're unprofitable. And it's the difference for us between making an 80% profit when the price is high to, a 20% profit when the price is low, but staying alive.
Perfect, thank you. And just for a factoid for everyone, the mining industry is probably one of the unique industries that American companies don't dominate. Okay, always a surprise for Americans because we like dominating everything. So only 3 of the top 30 mining companies are American. Number 30, Albemarle, and a gold mining company in Freeport. So it's an industry that relies, and then you strip out China and Russia companies, and you're left with about 10 Anglo, Australian, Canadian, Brazilian companies. So it's an important thing to keep in mind. It's something, the work we're doing with the US Senate and all that, politicians need to get their heads around, because this is allies that we're beating to death with tariffs. We actually need their cooperation at a country and company level. Rodrigo, copper. So just so you know, IEA calls copper the metal of electricity. Okay, because it's vital across fossil energy right through EVs. It's every aspect of energy. Copper is used across all industrial activity. Right now we're producing 25 million tons of copper. By 2035 that needs to go to 40 million tons, and all the known projects, remember it takes 30 years to develop, so we have a good line of sight on this. Annually we're going to have a 10 million ton shortage. 10 million tons. That's 30% of global supply if demand projections are correct. I mean, that is a massive shortage, which will either cause massive price spikes or something. So copper, I mean, Rodrigo talks about opportunity. This is a massive opportunity. So Rodrigo, when we think about these supply shortages, how are we going to close the gap, and what you're doing, and what's the answer here given time frame to find it? And there's not a lot of good copper assets floating around the world either. So how should we think about this?
I think I like the word close the gap. We won't close. We can try, but it's not going to be enough. I think we are already out of the range to be able to meet the demand needs. For just putting on other words, what Peter was saying is the world will consume copper in the next 15 to 20 years is the same that we ever consumed since the early days until today. That's an insane amount of copper that needs to be produced in the next 15 to 20 years in order to supply EV vehicles, in order to supply AI energy demand, the military use, and all the construction. And the mining industry, I would say that you have probably three different steps. Number one, you have the mine. You have to find and mine the copper. Then you need to smelt and produce the final product. And then you use in the cars, or you're going to use on the electricity, on the power plants and whatsoever. But the fact is, copper and mining has been so under the radar in the last 10 to 15 years that the investment to find the new copper mine has decreased significantly from an average per year of $5-6 billion per year to the average of the last 10 years of $2.5 billion. So, and the amount of new copper mines that was found in the world in the last 10 years was absolutely insignificant. What needs to put it in production for the next year. So there's, and as you're saying, and well said in the paper, for you to start looking for copper, find the copper, do the engineer, do the permitting, and start producing, it takes 15 years. That's why I say there's nothing we can do now that will supply copper in the next 5 to 10 years, perhaps in 15 years, if the world finds new major copper mines, because it's getting more and more difficult. All the easy copper has been found and has been produced. Grades are decreasing, it's getting deeper and deeper, costs are going high. So that's, for me, it's very intriguing to see all these CO2 emissions reduction targets. All this electric vehicle transformation, all the need for energy AI, but this is very convenient, but very few talking about how we're going to find the copper, how we're going to find essential minerals, not only copper, there are many others that are in the same base. And as we said, for the United States, it's so crazy what's happening here, because as you said, United States does not dominate the mining industry at all in the world. It needs to supply from outside. And China has taken the right steps in the last 20 to 30 years. China is doing mining in Africa, Asia, Australia, Brazil, and other countries in Argentina, Chile. And then China also produced a significant amount, huge amount of smelting capacity in China. So United States today produce only 4 or 5%, not even not that in the world demand, but doesn't have the smelting capacity. So the copper from the United States goes to China, the iron, the ore, and then China refine and then send it back to the United States. So first, what the United States needs is build a very strong smelting capacity for not only copper, for many other products, because that will give them opportunity to buy copper from other countries. I don't think the US is going to be able to produce all the minerals that they will need, but it's geologically it's impossible. But the Americas can.
Yeah.
If you see the amount of copper that has in Peru, Chile, Argentina, Brazil, iron ore, and all the necessary metals, you can find the Americas. So definitely, after motivated, incentivized by taxes or tariffs, the smelting capacity, it will need to do nearshore mining. So it needs to go and drive the attention back to Latin America, which I'm from Brazil. The United States has forgotten about Latin America in the last 20 years and let China dominate all those markets. I still have time. I don't think there's time to recover the room in Africa. But Robert Freeland has a good mind in cobalt in Congo. He might give some good insights. But for sure, the Americas is still it's late, but still time to improve. And the good thing is, together with the American incentive and program and capital, comes the highest ESG, the highest environmental concerns, the highest governance concern, which will help the whole Americas to produce in the right way.
So just to give people, because people always go, I have no idea what 10 million tons of copper is. So just so you know, I'll just put it as, it's the equivalent every year of, so California's got about 83 gigawatts of energy. It's 23 Californias every year that we can't build. I mean, it's massive. That's the whole United Kingdom. So that's the electricity generation that's not produced. And everybody's talked about costs. There's another, it's in fact, today it takes, from 1980 to now, it takes 16 times more energy to produce a pound of copper than it did in 1980, 2 times the amount of water. And when you talk about Peru and Chile, these are all water-stressed areas, and 16 times the amount of rock we have to move to get to a pound of copper. And it's going just up, and the waste is exponential. So these are the technical challenges that just drive our costs up, and we're competing against China, which tends to be a low-cost producer, irrespective of what we're doing. So this has been really interesting. So let's jump into the geopolitical challenges. We've all scratched China, Russia. How do we think about, I mean, the minerals are in all these countries that we're beating up with tariffs, threatening commercially, yet we need their collaboration. And we can't just demand their minerals, right? And China's playing a much more sophisticated game than we are in these countries. So from a geopolitical point of view, what do you guys think? In all these minerals, what's the answer?
I think that there's this really interesting map that shows in the year 2000, all the countries color-coded either blue or red for if the US was a bigger trading partner with them or China. And in 2000, 80% of the world was blue for bigger trading partner with the US. And you look at that same map today in 2025, and it is terrifying how much is red. And to your point, the vast majority of South America has turned from blue to red. We still have, when I say we, the US still has a few blue spots on there. But Africa is completely red. The entire thing. And when we talk about new sources for copper, Africa, I mean,
that's you.
Africa is it. Like South America and Chile, a lot of the at least low-hanging fruit has been found. Africa is the new frontier, but it's a little scary to go to Africa. Yeah, it's challenging. It's the governments don't have the same type of control. It's a little bit more dangerous. The other big resource that I think is largely untapped for copper and nickel are deep sea polymetallic nodules. I know that's not part of.
No, that's not. Let's not go deep sea mining. That's a big topic by itself.
As we talk about kind of geopolitical positioning, these polymetallic nodules that sit on the bottom of the ocean floor about 4,000 meters deep, they're just potato-sized rocks, and there's no life down there. And you think about the trade-off between finding copper in the Amazon forest with a ton of biodiversity versus just picking up a potato off the deep ocean floor with no life. And I think that really could be a source of the copper and metals that we need.
I want to jump back into geopolitical. Sorry, so don't take us too deep. Rodrigo, you're from Brazil. I mean, you talk about how China's kind of captured the hearts and minds of Brazil. And I talk to a lot of the ministers, and they all say we would prefer America as a partner, but America makes it impossible to be a partner with you. And we know China has warts, but we go with China because they bring the solution. So, I mean, you're in Brazil. If you're the Brazilian Minister of Mining, what would you tell the American administration and say, this is how you need to flip that situation?
I think it's already moving to the right direction. We know that the administration has formed a task force in order to guarantee supply of essential minerals. But it's like doing what China did. It's a coordination of initiative from the central government in order to push those countries to trade with them. China would come and offer the financing very much for free, right? Zero interest for you to invest. They will offer invest in the whole infrastructure also, because most of the metals and mining needs ports, railroads, and all these logistics in order to sell. So China would come with financing, infrastructure, and then they would also provide all the technology and equipment. So the United States can do the same, right? But needs to be coordinated. How are you going to compete with money for free from China, right? So it needs to have some incentive. It needs to have a long-term, I think providing a long-term contract to sell copper, for example, can give us security in order to invest a significant amount of capital and sell to the US, perhaps even locking up prices that guarantees you that you're not going to lose money. So, and the US, as you mentioned, it's normally in the countries in Latin America, they would rather do business with the United States because it's more reliable and closer also. Culturally, it's similar than with China. But as I said, it's time to catch up. But the policy of the United States with Latin America in the last 20 years was absolutely
atrocious.
None.
And one thing, and then Mary, would you jump in, is that just so you know, when we talk coordination, in the US government, 17 agencies have a hand on mining, 17. So when we're talking about coordination, and executive orders don't get it done, trust me. We need legislation all of the time. And even though we have a mining czar, there is still no coordination between these 17 agencies. From range from state to interior to DOE, it's mind-numbing. And you try and coordinate 17 agencies on a coherent strategy globally. It's not easy. Mary, you live in DC.
Well, yes,
you're a
no,
DC
I know
person.
that very firsthand. But on the nuclear fuel side, because of the war in Ukraine, inside the government, there was an unprecedented level of coordination on what to do to help reduce reliance on Russia. And that has continued. There also has been a priority, both Congress and within the executive branch, a focus on engagement with allied countries on nuclear fuel. So there is something called the Sapporo 5, which was the United States, Canada, the UK, France, and Japan came together to coordinate on reducing reliance on Russian nuclear fuel supplies and strengthening the Western fuel supply to support the nuclear resurgence. Just last week, when President Trump was in the UK, they announced a technology partnership. And at the center of that was agreeing to work together on civil nuclear, all aspects of it, including licensing. And so I think that for all of these sectors, that allied nation coordination is going to be really important. I think maybe for your nuclear, it's a little bit ahead of where.
I think it is, and hopefully we don't need a war to get coordination on the others, right?
Yeah. I think there's a strong focus in Washington, D.C. on this.
No, there is, but my flip side of that is, we had MSP, which is called the Mineral Security Partnership, which is under the Biden administration. All it's done, and one minister told us in Africa, all we do with the US is talk, and end up with a memorandum of understanding, and then nothing actually happens. We're really good at MOUs, by the way. We're really good, and we're never good at getting past it. And China bypasses MOUs and just gets to, here's the money, here's the infrastructure build out, etc. We talked about construction delays. Let's talk about friendshoring. and don't say permitting reform, we know that. So PARC, which is horrendous and we may never pass the Senate. I mean, how do we get to a point where we can develop and run things at low cost, do it fast, and bring back the know-how and capability? I mean, this is not a magic executive order issue. This is a deeper problem in the US. Across all of us. So how do we, what's the solution?
I want to
going to jump in. No deep sea mining on this.
Yeah, I want to go back to the previous question because I got sidetracked, but I do have some thoughts.
Okay.
How many people here know what the Belt and Road Initiative is? Okay, perfect. As you know, that's China's initiative. And China has done a phenomenal job with that initiative over the past 15 or so years, maybe even a little bit longer, to globalize themselves. And the biggest natural resources are the item that are traded the most, right? So China has gone out and given money and infrastructure to all of these countries around the world, in Africa, South America, throughout Asia, to globalize themselves and become the biggest trading partner. The US, I don't know the number of global mines the US has, but we've taken a slightly different approach. China has one foreign military base outside China. Does anybody here know how many foreign military bases the US has?
Over 100.
300. What we've done is globalized ourselves with military power. What China has done is globalized themselves with trading and partnership power. And I think that, this current administration has really hurt the US in terms of the tariffs but more importantly, losing global trust. My business is a global business. I work with Korean battery manufacturers, Japanese battery manufacturers, European automotives, BMW, Volkswagen, etc. I work down in South America, and the US has lost trust in and uncertainty. That's the biggest thing. Our global partners, or at least used to be allies, don't know if tomorrow the tariff is going to go up 100%. And it takes years to build trust, and it takes a day to lose trust.
Yeah, we know that in any relationship.
In any relationship. And that is a scary thing because, I've never heard this type of rhetoric, but we're starting to hear about a new world order from China and Russia. And to think that the US is losing trust from the people that I interact with on a day-to-day basis, man,
it's disturbing. Yeah.
It's disturbing. So what can we do to address that, right? And what I'm thinking is I'm trying to write a white paper called The Gateway Era, which is, what is the US's Belt and Road Initiative? How do we start partnering with these countries, South America, we forgot about Latin America, that are incredibly important.
So we've got to move on. Yeah. So I think, I think the clear signal here is we need a new level of collaboration and partnership with countries across the world that have minerals, and because we're not going to get them out of the ground even in the next 30 years. And we need to really be thoughtful about it. But everything the administrations do, the last administration lectured countries about human rights, unions, and they're like, whoa, don't tell us how to run our country. And this administration is browbeating countries. So everybody's guilty of eroding trust and friendship with these countries. So big problem. So we've got to open up for questions, audience. So let's just tackle this. Rodrigo, I'll go with you. Are you guys building mines cheaper in Brazil than we are? Or are you facing the cost challenges and development and running that we are in the West?
I think I would never imagine that I would say what I'm going to say.
Okay.
But the fact is, the bureaucracy in the United States is huge. And yes, even in Brazil, we can build cheaper, faster, and more efficiently than you would be able to build in the US. Not only build, but also operate more efficiently than you would have in the United States because of the tons of amount of regulation. It's interesting because regulations builds up, right? Back in the 60s, it was a few, but they never withdraw any regulations, just one more. So that it's in the point that the US, like you said, I don't think the U.S. will be able to meet the demand requirement to supply those minerals, because they will have to go through a major bureaucratic review and going on Washington D.C. and policy review in order to speed up the process, simplify the rules so that people can invest.
No, that's good. Mary, before I say, so just everybody, the poster child in America for this is a mine in Arizona called Resolution. It's the biggest copper mine under development in the world today. It would supply 30% of all of the United States copper needs. Rio Tinto and BHP are the two biggest mining companies, both Australian and the world partner. It's been in development for 20 years, 3 billion in. It's yet to be approved. It's still stuck in the courts. And even if it was approved environmentally today, because indigenous communities the Apache are against it, it will take another 10 years before it produces its first pound of copper. By the time, and it's 50-50 whether it's good. I personally don't think it'll ever be approved.
And this because the copper is 2,000 meters down.
Yeah, 2,000 meters
It's not a surface, it's just underground.
Yeah, so
with a very, very low impact.
And it's destroying key religious grounds for the Apache, which is the court case. But Mary, last word on construction. We're going to jump into Q&A.
Yeah, I think in my prior life, I worked at the White House and was responsible for the environmental quality regulations and modernizing the National Environmental Policy Act regulations, which at the time had last been promulgated in 1977. And President Trump was very focused on modernizing those, simplifying, streamlining, making it predictable. He used to say, if the answer is no, you should find that out sooner rather than later. And from that time, I think that things have really changed a lot in Washington, D.C. There has been a very broad recognition that for all types of infrastructure that you want to build in the U.S., the process is antiquated and it's far too bureaucratic. And so there is a strong desire, I think, across the board to simplify and make the process more predictable. So I hope that will continue.
It needs urgent action. So just everybody knows too, Manchin and Barrasso, the ranking Democrat, Republican, had a permitting reform bill that was perfect, bipartisan, and for all infrastructure, power lines, everything. It didn't pass in the last session before the election. Did not pass. And there's a lot of sentiment in the Senate because of the politics of the big, beautiful bill that permitting reform won't pass because you won't get bipartisan support because of politics. Disturbing.
I think there'll still be a run at it. I think they will work.
Fingers
in that
crossed, because we
direction.
need it for energy. We really do.
Yeah, it's for mining and everything else. But mining, there is no question, mining is the toughest area.
tough. So we're at the 15-minute mark, so I'm instructed to open it up to audience questions. So otherwise, we'll keep talking. So anybody got specific questions for anybody on the panel? Any comments, any hostilities you'd like to put out here? So we're open for everything. Sorry, can't see hands. Oh, right at the back. Oh, right over there. So can you get a microphone down there? The podium creates a blind spot, sorry.
I understand you are all very enthusiastic about this, but where is this domestic talent coming from? Because I can think of probably 10 universities in the US that even have mining programs, and probably half of those have enrollment issues.
Yes.
So
Great question. So just so everybody knows, so where's all this talent coming from? Australia, which is a major mining engineer thing, entered, I think, 20 first-year mining engineers, 20. And it's one of the biggest mining countries in the world. It's down. So China could dominate us. You guys, you did a job fair, come and join me. But how do we get this mining engineer talent that China dominates? Rodrigo, why don't you kick us off?
Well, the United States has a
engineering.
very competitive advantage because most of the brilliant minds in the world wants to come live here. Take myself as an example. So perhaps needs to adjust.
I love the modesty.
Modesty.
Modesty aside.
I don't consider myself brilliant, but I do consider that I wanted to live here. But the fact is, of course, it needs adjustment, needs to invest in more universities. We don't need all mining universities. I am a mechanical engineer with MBA here. So you can mix talents from any kind of school and teach how to run mine companies. And the technical you can bring. Of course, it needs to adjust a little bit the visas strategy so that we continue to bring a very high talented people to the United States, because no other country in the world has this advantage, and it would be a shame if the United States missed this opportunity to continue to bring.
Yeah, Teague, what do you think?
For us, I didn't make this distinction. We produce lithium from brine water as opposed to hard rock minerals. So our process, we have a lot of chemical engineers on our team, and then to build the process, we have mechanical, electrical, so on and so forth. There's a lot of geology and water reservoir engineering, and those are actually some strong suits in the U.S. due to our oil and gas industry.
So it's not a zero-sum game. It's great. Mary, nuclear. Lots of nuclear physicists, I hope.
Yeah, it's growing across the country, and I think in the nuclear sector, one of the things that there's been a strong effort to pursue is really going out and trying to educate the next generation. So we actually at Urenco, we go out and we talk to fifth graders about nuclear. We support there's a technical training school in one of the towns nearby, Hobbs, which because it's the Permian Basin, there's a lot of energy, oil and gas, wind, solar. And so we have an excellent training school that the kids compete to participate in and learn all kinds of skills. We also are involved with the junior college, and then we have internship programs. So the nuclear sector has been making a very concerted effort to try to cultivate, and we have found that has worked well. We're in a remote area, but we've been able to hire more and more people
That's great.
locally.
Yeah, that's
and so I
promising.
think that
So we shouldn't be too despondent.
I don't
Yeah,
think so.
sure.
I think
we need to tell the story better, though, because clearly this is not a and they're well-paid jobs, by the way. This is the other thing.
Yes.
So just so you know, mining truck drivers in Australia that work 2 weeks a month earn nearly $200,000 a year, just FYI, which is about 160,000 US. Not bad for a truck driver. That's a 300-ton truck, just FYI. Any other questions? I'm American, by the way, despite the accent. So yeah, sorry. Yep, there. Microphone. Wait, can we get a microphone here, please? Thank you.
Has the indigenous reframe effectively affected any of your companies as you try to open new mines?
Great question. So yeah, and just so you know why indigenous reframing, then Rodrigo, I'll definitely get you to start on this, is 80% of known minerals are either on or adjacent to indigenous lands everywhere in the world. Okay, and indigenous people's voice is now very loud and very strong around the world. So Rodrigo, obviously, big voice.
This is being more and more often, which I think is good. I think about that. You're a mining company, and then you find the ore underground, close to someone that lives there for centuries. So you cannot just ignore that they are there. I think the world has proven and showed us that it's important to have a very strong communication. There is this human rights at the United Nations, a free prior informed consent, which means before you invest, do a lot of dialogue, transparent dialogue, provide what are your plans, what will be some benefits or not, how are you going to take care about the nature, the water, and so on, and then you're good to go. I think this is super positive because you cannot just go there, cut the trees, and kick them out and mine. But what sometimes is a concerning is because of this awareness, which is good, there are a lot of NGOs that try to extrapolate and push too much. Sometimes, and as myself, we are talking to communities, they want us to mine there. And the NGOs goes trying to convince them not to let us mine. They cannot convince. They cannot convince. Then they pay for the communities in order to protest against the mine. This is happening all over, and we need to understand and differentiate what are the real protests, what is the real thing that you need to take care, or what is being manipulated by some NGOs. Because there are some NGOs that does not want mining at all. Ideological.
NRDC.
And let's
zero mining.
And let's be honest, everything we do needs mining, right?
So, and just so you know, the term for indigenous obviously is the social license to operate, is a term you may hear often. Like at the moment, Peru is suffering severe disruption in mining. So Hudbay, a big Canadian mining company, just had to shut down plants because of community protests, etc. So, I mean, it's a growing problem. The industry is progressing, but also the indigenous demands, and NGOs do need to stay out of it because they really muddy the water.
Yeah, it's affecting us too.
Yeah.
Our mine in Chile is 200 kilometers from the closest indigenous settlement. It takes 5 hours to drive from that settlement to our property. And as I explained before, our mining is very non-invasive. We drill wells, pipe water, and it's a small footprint.
Yeah.
But there are more real examples than that where the mine is like maybe adjacent or on the land. Like I don't know the extent of the Resolution Copper situation, but even in our situation, there's a lot of opposition, and I don't know if it's they obviously want some sort of compensation. These people are they need help, right? We're all sitting here in nice suits. Nobody in the town owns a suit.
Or has electricity.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's a balance. You need that social license to operate, and you have to figure out how to keep them happy. But also, there's a lot at stake, right? Not only for the company and the project, but like the whole energy transition.
So I think, we do a lot of work with Indigenous communities, and I know, so we hear this time and time again. So things like, we had the Grand Chief of the Cree Nation was on our board, Matthew Kuhn, come, and he said, we always use the word consultation, got to have consultation with Indigenous. They actually find that word insulting because they want participation. So what they really want is, we want to see more of the benefits. We want to see prosperity grow beyond the life of mine, but we also want our values integrated into projects. And this is so foreign a concept to Western or non-Indigenous minds. It's mind-bending. So when they go, we want education, we immediately want to build a school, but that's maybe not what they want, and we don't listen to them. I hear it all the time. We're just not listening. So we kind of call it about this triangle of trust between governments, Indigenous communities, and the miners needs to be built and maintained. NGOs really need to keep out of it because those are the three most important constituents in any country. Mary, maybe you guys, I don't know, because you're in New Mexico, a lot of Indigenous, so you don't have any of these issues. No.
It's not the part of New Mexico where the
okay.
Permian Basin is not.
That's fine.
But it's but anyway, it underscores how important
It is very
engagement is from the very beginning.
So other questions? So, yep. Oh, many. These two. So, gentlemen, microphone, please. Yeah.
Okay. This question might be directed to Mary. To what extent is the current administration's interest in Greenland related to minerals?
I don't think I could answer that one. Defer to others on that.
Probably high.
Canada, 51st state, Greenland, DRC. That's interesting. Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Greenland's got a lot of minerals, but you can't get them out of the ground. Sorry, go.
Yeah, no. So my name's Kai. I have been interested in like the energy sphere and sustainability for a long time, and sort of growing up in that interest sphere, I definitely have heard so much anti-mining sentiment just prevailing. And I know this was touched on a little bit earlier, but I would love to hear all of your thoughts on sort of what is being done and what can be done in terms of informing public sentiment into how critical mining is for sustainability in general, because I think that isn't necessarily a common understanding. There's this gut reaction that like mining is like bad, harmful. What can be and is being done to combat those assumptions?
Good. Rodrigo, do you want to?
I think that very quick, because we are running out of time, is
very quick.
the answer I think is simple. There's no green energy without copper, lithium, there's nuclear, and there's no way the world will be able to change from carbon to electric without significant amount of mining. So we should not ask if we want or not mining, we should ask how. Let's do it right.
Yeah.
Let's do it the right way.
Yeah.
There's this saying that if it's not grown on trees, it's mined out of the ground.
If we don't grow it, we dig it out.
Yeah.
Yep. No, it's really important. Mary?
I think sometimes just seeing the modernized operations, it's shocking to people because they see that it's not what they think it is at all. And the technology is amazing.
It is, and I think the other thing is we need to be better at trade-offs. Every human activity has a negative consequence. There is no zero consequence pathway. Renewable energy is not a zero consequence.
Peter, you can have a positive consequence. Not necessarily negative.
But we've got to have trade-offs. We've got to understand that's a consequence we're willing to bear, not this one. So I think we just got to get better at that. Got time for one more question before we wrap. So yes, young woman here. Microphone over here. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Betsabe Escobedo, and I would like to ask what are the strategies that the mining sector is creating in order to meet the growing demands for the data centers, the energy for the data centers. Thank you.
Jump in first, then Mary.
I think that nuclear is one of, if not the only key. It is the most potent, energy dense power production method, and I think that like we said, all these materials need to go into nuclear, but nuclear is the answer to the future of data centers and AI. That's my opinion.
And I think you see a lot of competition between the states now. Many states do want to see AI come to their jurisdictions, and so there's really across the country there are many states that are really actively pursuing this. Nuclear is something that's at the center of it. Many will be powered by gas in the early stages, but I think the other thing that is being done by the administration is really trying to expedite the development of AI facilities, and they're doing it on federal land and using some of the Department of Energy's authorities, and they're trying to help to expedite the process and see results sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Rodrigo?
I think that it's well answered here.
So my comment too is, this is kind of a contrarian point, is mining companies don't absolutely believe in the demand curve up to 2035. So they are progressively building up. The last time they overbuilt supply, they destroyed shareholder value. So there's this progressive increase in supply, but no mining company is going to invest in 30-year projects, 10, 20 billion. I mean, the big miners are just not doing that. I mean, the two big miners in the US, Freeport and Rio Tinto, own the two smelters. They both said, I will never build another smelter in America, just won't. So, and if prices triple, do I look as a CEO concerned? And substitution and recycling is not going to substitute for lack of mines. So there's this kind of tension in the system around shareholder value. So 3 closing points, I think. I think what you've heard is tremendous opportunity and with tremendous challenges across everything that we've talked about. I think the solution lies in almost hyper level of collaboration, the US with countries in Latin America and Africa. We need to get our act together. And my favorite quote is, Brazil's less bureaucratic than the United States. It's kind of scary.
I would never imagine that.
No, that was a quote from a
came out of the
brilliant
book, that's
person,
true.
a brilliant immigrant, as we all are. So please join me in thanking Mary Rodrigo and Teague for a tremendous discussion. Thank you.